Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Echo Worm Live. This is a live stream that we try to do every other Thursday around about that 4 o'clock Eastern hour. It just kind of gives all of our North American audience the chance to come in at the end of their work or school day, and then of course we can catch everybody over in Europe before they wind down for the night. So I always love knowing where in the world you guys are listening from. If you're watching after the fact, of course, you can leave a comment if you like. Otherwise, feel free to join the live chat. Let me know where in the world you guys are listening from as much as you're willing to share. And if you've never been a part of one of these, the way we typically do them is for the next hour to hour and a half, we'll go through all of the pre-prepared questions that you guys left on the channel, whether it be in the audiobooks or on Discord or on Patreon. Feel free to ask anything you guys like in the chat, whether it be about the stuff that we cover on the channel, stuff about my personal works that are also on the channel, stuff about what is coming up on the channel, or stuff about me if it's something I would be interested in answering or comfortable answering on camera. I'm checking the chat right now. A few people saying hi. Xpogo Sam says, totally forgot I had this tab open and you scared the hell out of me. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're here, and I'm same with Aster, Daughter of Hades. Been waiting for this stream for a while. Very happy to have you guys here. Like I said, we try to do these every couple weeks here. That means the next one will be what, the 11th, I think, of January or of February. Excuse me, losing track of my days. So we'll start with a couple questions here. Liv is asking, is there any chance I could suggest you to read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams? You could certainly suggest it. There's no chance that or I shouldn't say no chance. There's not a very high chance that I actually listen to that request, but you're always more than welcome to request something. I do have a pretty significant list, so if you request something, the chances of me getting to it anytime soon are very, very slim. Xpogo Sam doxes himself in the chat. Very nice. I respect it. Jennifer Bishop is asking a question about my Percy Jackson audiobooks. Why is your voice for Pluto so gravelly? It's a Steve Coogan impression. So I grew up with the Percy Jackson films, right? Before there was a TV show, there was a set of films that came out 15 years ago or so. And Hades is played in those films by Steve Coogan. So everything that I do for Hades in the series is an impression of Steve Coogan from the films. Juliet Smith is asking another Percy Jackson question. I think this one has to do with the Titan's Curse, asking, how did they get centaur blood? My guess is the blood of a centaur. Smileys says, I want you to have a cameo appearance on the TV show. I can think of nothing I want less for myself than to be on the Percy Jackson TV show, but you're more than welcome to audition yourself for it if that's something you're interested in. Jelly is asking, have you done Chalice of the Gods? Yes, you should be able to find all of the Percy Jackson books or literally any Rick Riordan book on the channel. So if you can't, let me know, but they should all be there. Xpogo Sam asking, was the Lightning Thief movie for real 15 years ago? I think 16 at this point. I think it came out in 2010, didn't it? Gim Jung says, it's been a minute since I've cut a live stream. What is your favorite book that you're reading right now? Good question. My favorite book that I'm actively reading right now. Probably House of Cards, because I've been working on that on the channel for like 4 years and I still haven't finished it, just because it's a very hard book to narrate. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff I'm working on, but that would probably be my favorite if I had to pick one. Xpogo Sam says, who would you be if you audition, though? Good question. Given the fact that they've already filmed season 3, Garion is probably my go-to answer. I would play a mean Garion. If they started casting like an open call for different characters in season 4, I would actually consider it if I got the chance to play Garion on television. That would be awesome. Aster, Daughter of Hades says, will you repost the Demigods and Magicians book? I'm pretty sure you already read it before the channel got wiped. I'm pretty sure it's already up. If you can't find it on the channel, let me know, but I'm pretty sure it is available. In fact, I'm going to double check that. If I go to Echo Worm, Rick Riordan. Hold on, give me a sec here. I gotta look it up. Echo Worm, Rick Riordan. And if I view channel, I should be able to find Echo Worm, Demigods, and Magicians. Okay. I thought it was all up, but maybe not. Echo Worm, Demigods, and Magicians. Looks like it's not. I will make a change and make sure that that is up there tonight. So, thank you for letting me know. For whatever reason, I thought it was up. They should all be up, but yeah, I will add it. I'm glad you mentioned that because they should all be on the channel. Martin Raymond Lequago says, can we get the death cure, please? We've waited for so long. You've waited like 2 weeks, so that's not that long. Huck Hooper is also asking, will you do death cure? Yeah, death cure is going to come as soon as we're done with this beast here. We got about a month left of chapters on Inheritance, and as soon as we're done with Inheritance, then we will be finishing the Maze Runner trilogy. So, be patient. It'll come. 2 weeks is nothing compared to the rest of this channel, so. Question from Newt, who's asking, are you going to be doing any other James Dashner series? At the moment, I don't have any plans to, but if someone requests something that a lot of other people are requesting, then I'd be open to moving it up in my list. How are you feeling? Not great. I don't know if you guys can hear it in my voice. I got really sick last week. If you guys are members of the Patreon, you probably knew that because I stopped posting for about a week. And right now I'm slowly catching back up. I don't know what it is. I usually get really sick about once a year. And this year, last week, was probably the sickest I've ever been. So yeah, that was not fun, and I'm still feeling it, and you can still kind of tell in my voice. So I'm getting better, but very slowly and not as fast as I would like to. I am going to Arizona next week, so hopefully the sunshine helps. But yeah, that's what's new with me. Clara Smith says, can you read Dracula by Bram Stoker? I think you could find 1,000 other audiobooks of Dracula that do it better than I possibly could. So I would highly recommend any other channel than me. Astro Daughter of Hades says, how are your fish doing? Good, kind of. We had a complication with our shrimp again. So I have only ever lost shrimp. And so Charles II is now deceased. But I do know why. Invertebrates really struggle to absorb different chemicals in the water. And I treated my fish before I got a shrimp with copper. And the copper still resides in the sand, which I didn't realize it would stay as long as it did. And my shrimp was digging in the sand trying to look for food. And it hardened his shell in a way that when he tried to molt out of it, he was unable to molt out of it, and then he ended up dying. So, my fish are doing great, but I can't for the life of me keep a shrimp alive. So, fish are behind me. They're doing well. Doris, the blue tang, possibly has Popeye, but she is in good spirits and has been reacting to treatment really well, so. Expogo Sam says, your on-air sign isn't on, so my immersion is ruined. Well, I'll show you what happens when I turn it on. This is why it's not on. Give me 1 sec here. So I turned my on-air sign on, and it's so bright that you physically can't see the on-air sign anymore. So that's why it wasn't on. So I'm going to go shut that off because I think it's obnoxious, the fact that you can no longer read it. Unless you guys want me to keep it on. I totally can, but I think that looks obnoxious. Kylito's Corner is in the chat saying hi. Good to see you guys. Happy to have our regular crew here. I will go turn it off. It's driving me nuts. Yeah, my wife bought it from China. And it's really nice because like I'll put it on the outside of my door and she'll know when I'm recording or whatnot. But it is so much brighter than my camera settings can handle. So it's obnoxious. The other fish is doing well. He's off camera over in that direction. He's still alive. I'm shocked he's still alive. Yes, my two options are exactly as you said. Hopefully my stream is doing fine. Something popped up on my screen again, so let me know if you guys are having trouble listening or hearing me or whatever. Summon the sun. It would be nice. It's very cold where I'm from. I know the entire country is really cold right now, but like last week it hit -40. And so that was not fun. If you know which part of the country I live in, it's not been fun for a variety of reasons the last couple of weeks. So yeah, like it's a well-made sign. It's just the light is way too bright and there's no settings on it. It is literally on and off. So it's a really well-made sign. Apart from the brightness. Yeah, it was -40 degrees Fahrenheit last week. It was freezing. Logan Butler asking, can you read Dungeon Crawler Carl? Yes, that's been requested quite a bit. It's pretty high up on my list. Expogo Sam, I was going to complain about it being 10 degrees here, but nah, you win. Today it's nicer. Today it's like 15, maybe? I don't know. My son went sledding, so... Dakota is asking, will you read the Vampire Academy series? That's been requested a few times too. I'll see if I can bump it up in my list. Maxwell Melander asking, when is the new Percy Jackson book coming out? So far as I'm aware, it is planned to come out in September. The last 3 Rick Riordan books have all come out in September. It may even go back further, but as early as Chalice of the Gods, every single one of Rick Riordan's last couple books has come out in September. Expogo Sam says, we did get about a foot of snow that froze solid overnight, so I've been out of school all week. That's good news. Yeah, we don't, I mean, we get snow, but like, it's not going to stop you from having to go to work. Red Neptune says, do you like the cold? Thoughts on beaches? I would prefer the extreme cold to the extreme heat because I grew up with it and I know how to deal with it for the most part. Thoughts on beaches? I enjoy beaches. I'm terrified of the ocean for a variety of reasons, but I have spent a significant amount of time on beaches in my life. So my wife and I go to San Diego every couple of years and hang out on the beaches there. Astro Daughter of Hades says, I have to walk to school in that cold. I do not envy you. Good news about where I'm from is it's not a walkable city. I say that being ironic, but it actually, this time of year, there's no possible way you could walk anywhere. It's way too cold. Expogo Sam says, how goes the upcoming Homeland Security chapter? Also, any internal conflicts on the name due to recent events? I'll answer the second half first. No, I actually think it fits and would probably make the book sell better. Not that my goal with Radiation Effect is to get it to sell, but it's a political thriller, and if people are drawn to it because of the title, regardless of any, I don't even think it's a controversy, but given everything that's going on, yeah, I don't have any reservations about it still remaining Homeland Security. I think it fits with the theme of the book to fall into the current events going on in the world. As in terms of how goes the upcoming chapter, I am pushing my personal due date to next week. I think giving myself just about a week's buffer will help flesh out my ideas for this chapter. This is kind of the last big chapter where nothing happens. And it's also the one I've mentioned before may end up getting cut or absorbed by other chapters. That being said, I'm happy with where things are right now. I'm just going to wait to really push the rest of the chapter until next week. And then I'm really excited. I have like a month and a half stretch where it's going to be setup chapter in Eric Schwabington, setup chapter in The Radiation Effect, huge plot reveal chapter in Eric Schwabington, and then about 3 straight weeks of just like things happening in The Radiation Effect. So I'm really excited for my upcoming marathon of writing, and being able to share that with you guys, because it's gonna be, I shouldn't say the best chapters in the books, but it's where everything really starts pushing forward all at once. And I didn't necessarily plan that to be the case all at once, but I'm very excited that it has fallen that way. Marianne says, have you heard that mass market paperback books might be going away? I don't know if that's still true. I don't know that. I'm not super familiar with mass market paperback in terms of the brand, unless you're talking specifically just like paperback books in general. I don't know that. Aster, Daughter of Hades, says, what is the worst experience you've had while swimming? I, for one, had alive things floating down rivers I was swimming in. Worst experience swimming. I was at Xel-Há in Quintana Roo, Mexico, which is like, the best way to describe what Xel-Há is the Mexican equivalent of SeaWorld, but it's also an active water park that you swim in some of the exhibits with the animals. And so like there's a huge lagoon, and one part of it is like blocked off for different dolphin shows. And like the dolphins aren't going to swim in the main lagoon, but you'll probably be swimming with all of these other gigantic fish. And then like there's a crocodile exhibit that hopefully the fence stays up and whatnot. And then you basically like there's water slides that go underneath mangrove trees, and there are literally coatis walking over you as you're doing this. But we got caught in a riptide in the middle of this lagoon, and our bus was leaving to go back to the resort. And so my dad and I are not very good swimmers. My brother is. And so my brother at like 10 years old had to swim ahead of us, get to the far side of what was basically, I think they had like a Margaritaville restaurant, like on the resort. Or not even the resort, but like this Xel-Há theme park area. And my dad and I are not drowning, but we're like in the middle of this lagoon, struggling to stay on top of the water. And my brother has to swim all the way, get someone's attention to get us help, and then he has to go tell the bus driver that we're going to be late. So it was really not a fun experience, because it was then about to storm, and basically we just had to make sure someone saw us so we didn't end up, drowning. Let's see here. Expogo Sam says, chapter after the next is going to be the mission, I would assume. No, you'd think so. There's an Emma chapter that happens right before the mission. And I'm very excited for that one, because I have no idea how I want to start it, but I know exactly what's going to happen at the end of the chapter. Yeah, that's not ideal. Yeah, I don't know, Marianne. I'll have to look into that. I don't know that. Question from Ellie. Is it me, or are your audiobooks really quiet? Is there something I could do to fix my volume because it's at max? On YouTube, I don't have mastered files on YouTube, so it will occasionally be hit or miss. I can't talk today, excuse me. But there are free mastered versions on Patreon and Vimeo. If you want to jump over to Patreon and Vimeo, you shouldn't have the audio issues. Oh, geez. Yeah. No, it's going to be a good chapter. Red Neptune says, what style of writer are you? I guess I'm confused by the question. If you wanted to clarify, or give me examples of what you mean by style of writer, I can tell you the way that I write things in terms of Eric Schwabington is a first-person, not omniscient narrator. Eric Schwabington is written in the style of Percy Jackson, and The Radiation Effect is written in limited third-person narrative. So each chapter, there's about 6 POV characters, and they alternate by chapter. It's very similar to something like Game of Thrones or even like the Heroes of Olympus. Braden Foley asks, do your videos have ads and can you remove them? As far as I know, none of my videos have ads, nor should they have ads. None of my channels are monetized. So if any of them do have ads, it is YouTube monetizing my videos for their own profit. But none of my channels are monetized, nor do I have them set for ads. Red Neptune says, just what is your process to creating story? Your creative process? Good question. It varies. I would say right now my creative process is the books that I'm writing, I have been formulating for some time. And so I kind of have a broad idea of what the greater story is going to be. And then I kind of just, I genuinely just write out a whole bunch of different characters and will occasionally flip them if I think the narrative fits better, if a certain character comes here or there or whatever. But I basically have a list of chapters knowing where things are going to fall storyline wise. And then I write for about 10 to 15 pages. Each week I alternate between The Radiation Effect and Eric Schwabington, and just let conversations go as organically as I can, but also, especially when it comes to Eric Schwabington, really try not to overstay my chapters. The Radiation Effect has some really long chapters at points, and I do that on purpose because I like the conversations to flow as organically as possible. Eric Schwabington, I'm a little more conservative with that in terms of I set about 10 pages for this chapter, and I try to stick with that as firmly as I can, just so the book doesn't get too long or each chapter doesn't feel like it's too stretched out. Expogo Sam says, I've been enjoying Eric Schwabington. It starts to remind me about the D20 season, Misfits and Magic, just a bit. The D20 season. I don't know what you mean by that. Misfits and Magic. I'd love to have you elaborate on that thought. Atlantis Gaming says, what is your prediction for Royal Rumble? Men, I would say Braun Breaker. Women, I think, is up in the air. I think Liv Morgan is probably the best bet. But I think there's a lot of options. I think we'll see Powerhouse Hobbs debut. I think we'll see Chris Jericho return. I'm trying to think if there's any other names I would like to see on the main roster. Tony D'Angelo, I think, would be a cool jump. But beyond that, I don't know. Expogo Sam says, Dimension 20 on Dropout TV. That is a different world from mine. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm glad it reminds you of that. Someone in my comments section was amazed that they'd never thought of putting wizards in space before. And I thought that was really funny because, like, that's the whole point, is I have to make it different than Harry Potter, so I put the wizards in space. Atlantis Gaming says, what did you think of Season 2 of Percy Jackson without spoiler? No comment. Maddie Wells says, will the last Maze Runner book be recorded? I mentioned earlier I'm going to do the Death Cure as soon as we're done with Inheritance. And then after that, I'll probably bounce back and forth between a few other series. I want to do Twilight. And I think I'll bounce back and forth between Twilight and doing the 2 prequel books in the Maze Runner series. The Fever Code and whatever the other one's called. The Kill Order. It's a bad name for a book. It's not as bad as Radiation Effect 3. Radiation Effect 3 has the worst title that I'm so proud of. It's kind of metal if you're a 12-year-old angsty teenager. I will very likely change it, but... R.W. Planter says, have you considered reading the Mortal Instruments novels? They've been requested a number of times. they're on my list. I don't know how far up on my list, but I can definitely look at moving them up because I think it's been requested more often. Atlantis Gaming says, do we have any Percy Jackson news about the new book? Not as of me going live. I haven't seen any title news. I haven't seen any direct release news. I'm still, as far as I know, the news with the Percy Jackson universe is that by December we'll have season 3 of the show, which I actually think is a fantastic step in the right direction. And then the book is expected to come out in September. Flickster YouTube says, I noticed that you used the artwork for the Arctic Monkeys album, The Car, as the thumbnail for the titular Homeland Security chapter. Yes, I wanted to, what's the word? Content bait people. Kalito's Corner says, have you seen any 2026 F1 paint schemes yet? The only ones I've seen were Red Bull and Haas. I think it's going to be fun getting used to Ford being on Red Bull's cars. Yeah, there's still about 5 left, I think, because there's 11 teams this year, so they've done, I think, 6, and there's 5 more to go. I think the best-looking car I've seen so far is the new Mercedes. It's not drastically different from anything that's come before, but it looks really clean. Red Bull has gotten a little brighter with their blues. RB, I think, looks darker than it did last year. Haas looks the same way Haas always does. What else is there? Alpine was, in my opinion, not very impressive. Maybe there's only 4 left. Because Ferrari has a car too. And Ferrari looks weird because Ferrari's mostly red, but it's also white. They don't have a ton of black or yellow on the car. And then the other one is Audi. And Audi, not really sure how I feel about Audi yet. It's got this weird orangish red to it. But I'm very excited to see what Cadillac comes up with. Xpogo Sam says, D20 is a Dungeons and Dragons show. Tons of seasons with different stories and game systems. Interesting. Do I follow IMSA as well? No, because I don't know what that stands for. IndyCar? Motorsport of America? I have no idea. No. F1 is the only racing I follow. Talisa Goslin says, you should read Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I think I've heard of that one before. I don't know if that's been requested before. And that's why I'm thinking, excuse me. But I can bump it up if that's something that you guys would be interested in me reading. Shurin says, are you going to do more Keeper of the Lost Cities? I think so. The first book took me a while to get into. I've recorded the first one. It's available on Patreon. But it's a long series, and I don't know if I have the energy to do the entire series, especially as the books continue to get longer. But I'd be willing to do at least 1 or 2 more. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the ending of the first story. So Monica Yu says, Harry Potter or Percy Jackson? In my opinion, it's always been Harry Potter. Harry Potter was first for me. Harry Potter is, in my opinion, the better written story. But Percy Jackson is fun, and there's a reason that I chose it to start the channel. Sarcastic King Dude says, are you going to do Wings of Fire soon? Yes. That question keeps popping up on my live streams. I am working my way through the first one, slowly but surely. Flickster YouTube says, have you heard of the motorcycle and supermoto brand Ducati? Yes. If I ever became a bikes person, which would probably mean that my world is falling apart, I would have a Ducati. Luke Schumacher says, can you do the Gregor the Overlander series? Yes. Gregor the Overlander is a series that was written by Suzanne Collins, who did the Hunger Games. And it's been requested quite a bit on the channel. And I've never read it. So I'm very interested to see what it is and what it's about. And I've heard very good things. Excuse me. What is the next ranking video on your second channel? Good question. If you guys didn't know, I have another channel where I do more long form video content, and I've also done a bunch of ranking videos. I just did a couple weeks ago a Percy Jackson ranking video where I rank all 19 books in the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles series. So I did that. This week I did all 34 episodes of Black Mirror, and then next week I'm thinking of doing all 10 books and films in the Hunger Games universe ahead of the upcoming film. So stay tuned for that. There is a link in the description if you want to check out that channel. It's called Here's the Deal, or you could look up Here's the Deal _YT, and you should be able to find it. Red Neptune says, would you ever write a fan fiction or only original works? I don't really see the point in writing fan fiction. Like, some people really enjoy it. For me, I don't have any interest, nor do I have the time to do so. So I don't know why I would try to put my time and energy into using other people's characters when I could make my own original content, if that makes any sense. Marianne says, can you do the Wheel of Time? It's been requested quite a bit. I can certainly bump it up in my list. Xpogo Sam says, IMSA is just another racing series. Any thoughts on the systems changes for 2026 in F1 with the removal of DRS and the new hybrid system changes? I'm excited for the implications of it. Yeah, I know they're removing DRS, but there's this new, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's basically DRS, but it's a double-sided DRS, so you can change the flow of the car coming into the front, and you can also change it going into the back, and you can use them interchangeably. And I don't know all of the implications. I also am excited for the new engine regulations. And as a Mercedes fan, all signs before any actual evidence are pointing to Mercedes having done really well with the regulations in place. So I'm excited for that. We'll see if Mercedes can regain their spot at the top of the mountain. Atlantis Gaming says, you should make a video with all the Percy Jackson books 1 to 5 in one video. What do you mean by that? Like, combine all 5 books? Because there's technically 8 Percy Jackson books. But then there's also 19 books in the entire series. So, if you wanted me to put them all together in one video, I physically can't do that. That is way too much processing power. So if someone has a computer strong enough to do that, you're more than welcome to try to do that with my videos, but that sounds impossible. That one guy asking, what order should I watch the Trials of Apollo? That has been asked a few times. I would recommend you reading them in the order that they came out in, because that's the order of the series. So, Hidden Oracle, Dark Prophecy, Burning Maze, Tyrant's Tomb, Tower of Nero. Atlantis Gaming says, you should do the 39 Clues Rick one. The 39 Clues have been requested before. I'm not going to commit to do the 39 Clues because I have never read them, and B, I don't want to commit myself to a series that large. Luke Schumacher asking, will there be any more Fablehaven books added? Yes. Still working on the 3rd one at the moment. I have no idea when it's going to be up on the channel, hopefully by this summer. But I have done the first 2, so there's only 3 more books left. I am hoping to get to them all in turn. Let's see here. Rami Taparia says, can you please do the Court of the Dead? I have already done the Court of the Dead. You should be able to find it on the channel. Let me know if you can't. Someone earlier mentioned that they couldn't find Demigods and Magicians, and that's because for whatever reason it was never posted to that channel. So, Court of the Dead should all be available. Flickstreet YouTube says, I'd like to see you do ranked lists for the other Riordan book series. Kane Chronicles, Magnus Chase, and the Percy Jackson High School Senior Adventure books. I could totally do that, and I probably will do that. I don't know necessarily what I'd be waiting for to do that, but I could maybe record one of those tonight and get my thoughts together. I have a definitive ranking for the Kane Chronicles. I don't know if I do for the Magnus Chase series yet. I have to really think about that. And I'd probably wait on the Percy Jackson ones until the 8th book is actually out. Expogo Sam says, the sustainable fuel is really interesting. I'm hoping that the trickle-down effect of F1 tech will help the adoption and build-out of e-fuel products. That's part of why I really like Formula E. It's not a very popular series, but I shouldn't lie to you and say that I don't follow any other series. I follow F1 concretely. I have been following F1 Academy the last couple years. And then I have been following Formula E pretty efficiently. But I don't follow any of the Super Series. I don't follow American Racing. I don't follow Porsche Super Cup or any of those other series. Let's see here. Astrodaughter of Hades says, what are your thoughts on the Cocoa Puffs? And if you had your own, would you name them? I like them as for what they... I have kind of a double-sided answer. I really like their inclusion in Sun and the Star. I think it makes sense as a visualization tool. But I don't know that they fit in Court of the Dead, which I think is the problem. Like, Court of the Dead, they have to be there, but their purpose and why they were introduced in Sun and the Star feels kind of wasted in Court of the Dead. And so, like, I like them in Sun and the Star. I don't like them in Court of the Dead because I think they just overstay their welcome, but they have to. Like, there's nowhere else for them to go. If I had my own, would I name them? Probably, just because I name everything. Like, I have very specific names for my fish, too. So, yeah, probably. Winged Fish says, totally random question. The way you pronounce Calvary, do you say Calvary on purpose? Not trying to judge, just want to know if it's intentional rage bait. Sorry, typo, cavalry. No. I grew up pretty active in the church, and so my default when I see the word cavalry is to switch it to Calvary. And if you don't know the difference, cavalry with a V, I always think of the word cavalier is how I remember the difference. Cavalry is soldiers on horseback. Calvary, with an L first, is where Jesus died. And so because of my background, I have a habit of saying Calvary first. And so if you ever catch me doing that, it is absolutely not intentional. It's just force of habit because I grew up talking about Jesus a lot more than I grew up talking about soldiers on horseback. So it's just it's like I shouldn't say a dyslexic tick, but it's one of those, the words are so close together that sometimes they just flip. Blunch is asking, did you delete one of your channels? Also, where did the full versions of your audiobooks go? I did not delete anything intentionally. If you're missing videos, let me know. But full versions of my audiobooks should be available for free on Patreon and Vimeo. There's links in the description below if you want to check them out. Goober Hopper asks, can you do Catcher in the Rye? Probably not, because I don't want to get canceled. Expogo Sam says, rare Formula E enjoyer. The new F1 dynamics with overboost will result in similar driving to Formula E with more passing defense potential. I'm more excited about the smaller car thing. I think the cars need to get smaller. I like Monaco. I don't want to lose Monaco, but cars are way too big to fit on that track. TK Kim says, can you do Percy Jackson and the Wrath of the Triple Goddess? Yes, I have already done Wrath of the Triple Goddess. You should also be able to find that one on the channel. Let me know if there are issues. Ginger Jesus says, can you please keep posting the Maze Runner series? Yes, I mentioned earlier, we're almost, I shouldn't say almost, we are about halfway through Inheritance. It's a very long book. As soon as we're done with Inheritance, then we will be moving on to the Death Cure, which is the third and final of the original Maze Runner series. Andrew Zecharias asks, will you be doing the third book of the Maze Runner trilogy? Same answer. Atlantis Gaming says, if you could have any Percy Jackson weapon, which would it be? Good question. Probably Aegis. Thalia's shield is kind of a fun weapon, just given what it does. Otherwise, I don't know. I think tridents are really cool weapons. They're somewhat impractical, but I've always enjoyed spears, and I like the fact there's 3 of them. Let's see here. Joshua Vanderhoven says, where can I find the Google Drive on Patreon? Good question. I do want to give a shout out to my Patreon members, and I can't do so at the moment because my mouse died. So you'll just have to imagine that the screen says patreon.com/echoworm. And I want to give a shout out to all the people who have joined the Patreon. You get, I think, 60-something days in advance of the channel. It's like 62 days in advance of YouTube. So if you want to join and get advanced content, you're more than welcome to do so. But if you join for the $8 a month tier or more, you also get access to a Google Drive that has most of my audiobooks, but they're downloadable, so you can take them on like planes and junk. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to join. Otherwise, all of it's available for free anyways. You just get added benefits of things being available in advance, or even if you want to get your name on a little card at the end of every audiobook. Astrid Daughter of Hades says, what is the weirdest food combination you genuinely enjoy? Oh, it's becoming harder for me because I keep developing allergies to things. Weirdest food combination that I genuinely enjoy. This would make me the coolest person in 1993, and it's not that weird of a thing anymore. I put fries on everything, and so like, it's hard for me to eat burgers without some kind of potato on it. I really like if I had to choose my ideal burger, it would be patty, egg, fries, lettuce, onion, and that's it. Maybe ketchup. But like, that would be my ideal burger. I don't know if there's any weird food combinations I have. My wife has a bunch, but my wife is also pregnant, so that is common. Red Neptune says, are there any books you won't do because you don't think your voice fits? Not specifically for that reason. It's more so like the figurative fitting of my voice. I really hesitate to... I've had a lot of requests to do books that are written by Black authors or have Black narrators. And I, for a variety of reasons, don't think that it's my place to tell that story and to benefit off of that story. And so, like, the one that is often requested are a bunch of, like, the Rick Riordan side books. And those are all written by authors of a very specific heritage and background, and I have always been comfortable doing like the European god types or even like the Egyptian ones, but when you branch into books that are about African mythology and written by African authors about African kids, I really struggle to see why, with all of the stuff that I'm trying to do on the channel, I should make that a priority and not just help promote other audiobook channels with similar voices, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of a broad answer. I don't know specifically if there's a voice that I wouldn't try. I've really wanted to do an Australian audiobook for a while, but I haven't had any really good recommendations for Australian literature, but I would love to try that. I've obviously done a bunch in British accents. I've done a couple in Irish accents. Most of Magnus Chase I did with an accent too. So, yeah. So if you're Australian or if you know of Australian literature that you'd recommend to me, I would love to try that. But Xpogo Sam says, Monaco just feels like they have to do it for heritage reasons. It's no longer an interesting race, so hopefully a return to form frees up room on that track. Yeah, one of these days I will end up going to Monaco and walking the length of the track because it's just such an iconic circuit, and it bums me out that racing looks the way it does there now. Atlantis Gaming says, what movie do you want to see this year? For me, it's the Michael Jackson movie and the Supergirl movie. What movies do I want to see this year? Avengers Doomsday is the one that stands out. Not because I think it'll be good, even though it totally might be. I'm just genuinely curious to see how all of these new universe characters are going to come together and see how well it meshes. I have the same curiosity that I had the first time I saw Avengers Infinity War. But beyond that, I don't know. Winged Fish says, do you have any audiobook channels that you'd recommend? Yes. The Well Told Tale is Robert from the channel In Deep Geek. It's a big Game of Thrones channel or Witcher channel or even Lord of the Rings if you're interested in that. He has an audiobook channel called The Well Told Tale, and he's done a lot of really, really good work on some classic literature. The one that sticks out, he did Dracula, but he also did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is a really good listen. He's got a fantastic voice. Winged Fish says, Deltora Quest is arguably Australian, though it might trend a bit younger. Interesting, I'll have to check it out. Excuse me. Aster, Daughter of Hades says, what was your favorite Kane Chronicles book? Or scenario that the characters end up in? I think Throne of Fire is easily the best book in Kane Chronicles. I really enjoyed all the retirement home stuff. I thought that was a fun visual. Marianne says, how about the Will of the Many? I'm not familiar. I'll have to check it out. Xpoco Sam says, the best thing to happen at Monaco in the past 10 years was the Citroën Ami flipping over. Yes, I remember that. Let's go to a question from some H person who says, how can I request an audiobook? Good question. I do commissions, but mostly it's you request something and then you be very patient with me because my list is very long. So that's my best answer. Bullard Barnes says, have you done the Maze Runner? Yes, I have done the Maze Runner. You should be able to find it on the channel Echo Worm Maze Runner. Whiskey May asks, can you read Powerless? I think that's been requested before. I'll have to see how far down on my list it is and see if it's worth bumping up. Senan Sarvan says, can you read the 6 Olympians next? I don't know that I'm familiar with that one. I'll have to check that out. How many chapters are in Homeland Security? What did I say last time? Like 43, 44? It'll be about 30% longer than the radiation effect. Basically, there's a big... The first act is a bit longer. It takes a little bit longer to get into the action. And then the second act kind of starts on a false start. There's like this boring middle start to it. And then things really kick into gear, and then there's kind of a false ending, and then there's the real ending. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about when we get there, but it's a lot of character development to get through in Homeland Security, and that's why there's more chapters. Not that it's going to be that much longer than the previous book, but there's going to be more bouncing back and forth of character POVs. Astro Daughter of Hades says, what book is on the top of your list for audiobooks that you haven't started reading yet? Twilight, probably. My wife has been asking for Twilight for a very long time. There are people on Patreon who have probably not been Patreon members for a year or more now that had been requesting Twilight constantly for about a year. That's how long I've been sitting on it. Marianne says, unpopular opinion, I hate first-person present tense written books. There are some exceptions, but I do not like books like that. Unfortunately, Will of the Many is one of them. Everyone likes it, but I really do not like that it's written in that. No, that is okay. Well, present tense books are weird. I also hate present tense books. It throws me out of it because almost every book I've ever read is this happened. But then you get books like The Hunger Games, or at least most of the Hunger Games books, the original 3 for sure, and then the Divergent series, it's all this happens or this is happening. And it's very distracting for me too, because especially when you go back and read it, I don't know what it is specifically about it, but it makes everything feel urgent in a way that the story doesn't always support. So yes, I'm completely in agreement there. Excuse me. No, I didn't talk to you, Siri. Go away. Carrie Riley says, will you read the last book in the Inheritance cycle? Yes. I'm currently working through it on Patreon. Once we're done with Allegiant on YouTube, then Inheritance should be available for free over on Patreon. So right now we're through, I think, the 32nd chapter of Inheritance, and it should be starting as like a daily free audiobook on Patreon on March 4th. So if you want to jump ahead by about, I think it's 62 days, you're more than welcome to join there. Indu Ravnich asks, is Murtaugh going to be done as well? I think eventually. I mentioned I might bounce back and forth between Twilight and the rest of the Maze Runner prequels. In that, I think I will have room to do Murtaugh, which is the fifth, and kind of, it's the tangential book in the Inheritance Cycle series. Came out a couple years ago. I've never read it. I'm very curious to know A, what it's about, but B, how it reads compared to the other books. So eventually we'll get to that one this calendar year for sure. I can probably stick around for another half hour if you guys have other questions that you want to leave in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to go through a few more pre-prepared questions. Always happy to answer questions about the channel or what's coming up on the channel, or just anything that you guys are willing to leave in the chat. Especially, I really enjoy when you guys ask questions about my original works. I'm very proud of the original artwork that's up. Ren did a fantastic job. I have some new artwork that I don't think is going to show up on camera if I throw my phone up. But the artist that I have for Eric Schwabington now just sent me some new work for, I don't know if you guys can see it, for a few other characters in the series. We got Drew, that's Eric's brother. More pictures of Eric. The light is really looking weird in my camera, sorry. We got one for Jordan, which is really cool. And then May, who you can't see because of the light. But I'll send it in the chat. I'm really, really, really happy with it and really excited to see the other art that Ren makes for the rest of the series. So very happy not to have AI artwork with it. Disciples 4 says, I love Thalia Grace's version in the TV show. They did an amazing job with all the characters. What do you think how they handle the characters? No comment. Krez says, how can I join the Google Drive? I mentioned earlier, if you're a member on Patreon for the $8 a month or more tier, you can just reach out to me on the app. There's like a messaging section on the app, and you can just send me a DM and say, hey, can I get access to the Google Drive? Aster Daughter of Hades says, I love how the Kane Chronicles books are written as audio recordings for other magicians. Yeah, there's a lot of creativity in the Kane Chronicles. I've mentioned this before. I think the Kane Chronicles is Rick Riordan's best overall series. I think other series have higher highs. But I think in terms of like cohesive story, Kane Chronicles is probably by far Rick Riordan's best work. And I really like the creativity that goes in bouncing back and forth between the two narrators. I like the way that it addresses the way that it's written and that sort of thing. But I really enjoyed recording the Kane Chronicles. I kind of miss it. Have you heard of the Nightmare Academy series by Dean Yorey? It scratches a similar itch to the Percy series, not to bloat your list even more. I've heard of it. I have never read it. I'm not very familiar at all. But I'll have to check it out and see if it's worth adding to my bloated list. Augusta Lannerborn says, when are you going to upload more Trials of Apollo? I shouldn't have to. They should all be there. The only exception is... No, I finished all the Trials of Apollo side books too. So, yeah, Trials of Apollo should be available in full. All 5 books and both side books. So, let me know if you're having issues finding something. Planet Jaster says, do you have an audiobook for Percy Jackson's Greek Gods and Greek Heroes? Not yet. I'm currently working on Greek Gods. I'm about 40% of the way through it. That is going to be my next release after I get done with Inheritance. But yes, I'm currently working on it. I did just get finished in December with Camp Half-Blood Confidential, so this has been next on my list for about a month or so. Pepper Garcia says, what is your upload schedule for new chapters? I mentioned we are currently working our way through Inheritance. That's usually 1 chapter a day. Because I took last week off because I've been sick, I'm currently doing 2 chapters a day. So once that's caught back up, then it'll be 1 chapter a day, and we'll go through Inheritance, and then we'll move on to the Death Cure, the final Maze Runner book. I'm spacing out today, man. Winged Fish says, there were Trials of Apollo side books. I must have missed that. There are 2 that are technically Percy Jackson books, but they came out during the Trials of Apollo. So those are Camp Half-Blood Confidential and Camp Jupiter Classified. Aster Daughter of Hades says, is there any books that you refuse to read? Also, what are the Trials of Apollo side books? I think I just answered the second question. In terms of books that I refuse to read, I don't really like Roald Dahl, so I don't want to read Roald Dahl on the channel. Mostly books that have words that I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to change words that are written in the text, and most of them are old enough to be able to have really good audiobook recordings by someone else anyways, and I just am not willing to put myself through the hassle of that, especially the way the channel is. So I also won't read anything by Philip Pullman or Neil Gaiman for obvious reasons, but yeah, I think it depends case to case. But that's the easy answer, is mostly just content that I would not be comfortable, not even with myself reading, but like, you know, I have children. So it's like if they were in high school and someone found out that their dad was reading 50 Shades of Grey on YouTube, like, what would that do for my children? You know what I mean? Marianne says, as you speak, I'm writing my own novel. Yes, it's about dragons. If I had the creativity to write about dragons, I would love to write about dragons. I just don't think I'm that creative. I would ask you to read The Scarlet Letter, but you said before it's your least favorite book. It is. That doesn't mean I haven't started an audiobook recording of it. I have no idea when that's going to be finished, but I have in fact started an audiobook of The Scarlet Letter. That book sucks. Winged Fish says, how many books are planned for your Radiation Effects series? It'll be a 7-book series with the intention of at least one short story to kind of finish out a character that never got to finish out. If you know who I'm talking about, it'll make a lot more sense. And also, I have considered doing a prequel novel for a character similar to what the Hunger Games did with Snow. But 7 main books. And then Eric Schwabington will just never end. It's a money factory. Once I get this series going, it will never stop. It'll be the next Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Every year I'll write 1 book and I will make obscene amounts of money and you'll never be able to stop me. Gim Chung says, what made you decide to change Jordan's name to Wyatt in the Radiation Effect? Also, how set in stone are the things that you've already recorded? I think I've answered this before. The reason I changed Jordan's name had to do with something personal in the life of a friend of mine who shares the name. And their stories ended up being scarily similar. And so for respect and to make it seem like I wasn't ripping off their story, I changed that. How set in stones are the things that I've already recorded? They're not necessarily. I'm currently rewriting the first book, just as kind of a, what I want to say, a first edit. But most of the plot points are still there. It's just dialogue choices and things like that. Red Neptune says, excuse me, what do you think your strongest creative skill is? Character, setting, or something else? That's a really good question. I think my strongest creative skill is dialogue, usually. I watch a lot of television, and I study a lot of screenwriting, and so I tend to write very dialogue heavy, and it's helps a lot that I'm doing these as audio recordings. But I think for the longest time, and I think I'm getting better at it, one thing I have always really struggled with is manufacturing organic tension between my characters. When I started writing The Radiation Effect, I was really afraid to introduce conflict between my characters because I thought that it somehow made my characters lesser than. And one of the biggest things that you have to learn as an author is that none of your characters can be perfect. And in order for things to happen organically, you have to break down your characters from kind of the perfection that you see them as. And so I still struggle with character development, but I think having kind of broken that perfect character syndrome that I have had for 10 years is really starting to push things in the right direction. I think I've done a good job creating the setting. Sometimes I feel like I could be a little more descriptive or not be so dialogue heavy and kind of move in the opposite direction because I think that's my biggest weakness. But I would say dialogue and conversations are typically my strongest writing skills. Astro Daughter of Hades says, I really love your audiobooks you put out. I love to read, but it's hard to keep focus with ADHD. Do you have any advice that might help with that? My biggest advice would be to read out loud. And I know that sounds, when you think about that, sometimes it seems a little childish. And maybe it is. But if that helps you retain the things that you're reading, I guarantee you I have never remembered so much of what I'm reading until I started recording them as audiobooks. And even now, like, there are still times where I'll zone out as I'm reading, even as I'm speaking aloud, but I'll still remember a lot of the things that I actually said because they're coming out of my mouth and having to be translated between my eyes to my brain through my mouth. But that would be my biggest advice, as embarrassing as it might be, or, you know, especially a lot of people read in public, and maybe you don't have that option. But if you're at home and you're alone in your room, I would definitely recommend reading out loud. It helps slow you down. It helps you not rush ahead of things, and it helps things be a little more balanced as you get through them. About 10 more minutes, and then I think we'll call it a live stream. Jorge Banuelos says, when will Scorch Trials be available for free? It should be available for free already. There's a channel called Echo Worm Maze Runner. You should be able to find all the chapters of the Scorch Trials. Winged Fish says, during the third Magnus Chase book, I noticed a lot of water noises. Do you remember what that was coming from? Yes. The fish tank behind me. I didn't have my outflow perfected the way that I needed it to be. And so that's where that comes from. Smiley McCall says, when will the Hammer of Thor be available for free? It should be. Every Rick Riordan book should be available on the channel for free. Orkar says, why do you pronounce vaguely the way you do? That is probably the question that plagues me the most on the channel. Vag. I have a very northern accent. I come from the border with Canada, and so I tend to pronounce things in a very specific way. And I think at one point in, I think it was Son of Neptune, I said vag, which is like the extreme version of my accent. And a lot of people thought I said vog. I don't know where that came from. But I get a lot of comments correcting me on how I say the word vag. Because everyone else says vag, but I don't. I say vag with a long A. Excuse me. Jamboree asks, if you sub to the $5 plan on Patreon, do you get access to all the books? Yes. There are a ton of books on there for free. What the $5 a month tier gets you is about 62 days in advance of the free stuff. So everything is and always will be available to you for free. But if you want to jump ahead of everything, that's what the $5 is for. And that gets you advanced access to everything. The only thing the $5 a month or more tier doesn't get you is access to the Google Drive. Kalido's Corner says, will there be any wildlife featured in Eric Schwabington and the Radiation Effect in the future, especially Eric Schwabington? The alien possibilities are endless. Yeah, there's a class in Eric Schwabington called Swoleg, which is, if you think in Harry Potter terms, it's basically Care of Magical Creatures. But the Eric Schwabington version. And they've talked about a bunch of different creatures there already. And as we move off-world, I guess you could say, you'll see a lot more of those. In terms of the radiation effect, I don't know, because I don't know if that is necessary for the story that I'm trying to tell. There will be a moment in the second book that, when I think of like wildlife moments in the series, that's probably the only one that really sticks out. So stay tuned for that. But yes, Eric Schwabington especially. Yeah, there's a bunch of creatures. And actually, if you haven't listened to it yet, chapter 10, basically the whole chapter is about Swoleg class and the different creatures involved there. So if you haven't listened to that yet, listen to it and let me know what you think of all the creatures that I have kind of introduced. Not that I've created them necessarily. Saying that, forgetting about the frogs in the early chapters. Yes, don't ever forget about the frogs, because they will kill you if you don't pay attention. Just a warning for Wheel of Time. Other than a 200-page chapter, 3 of the middle books are... other than a 200-page chapter, 3 of the middle books are not very great and considered slow. If you knew that already, wonderful. Yeah, I've heard plenty about the Wheel of Time. Usually from Stranger Things. Are you going to do a Stranger Things ranking on your other channel? I don't know. If I need more content, maybe. I'm so tired of talking about Stranger Things. I think everybody is. All right. I think with that being said, we'll wrap things up. Next live stream, let's plan for the 11th, I think is 2 weeks from today. So hopefully we'll see you all back here. I do want to answer a question that just popped up here. Aster, Daughter of Hades, says, how many times have you gotten to read your favorite accent? Ooh, good question, because I actually don't know what my favorite accent is. I really like doing Australian accents. There was a time I got to do that in Percy Jackson. That was really fun. And I also like doing Western British accents. I haven't really done that since Harry Potter. But there is a scene in the third Artemis Fowl book where 4 different characters with different accents are having a conversation. And I had to jump between my Irish accent, a New Zealand accent, an American accent, and the British accent that I chose for Butler. And that was very hard. So it's a lot of fun, though. Kylito's Corner says, I heard a bit ago about the Eric Schwabington art that someone made. Is that available to the public yet? Yes. You should be able to find it by looking just on YouTube. It's the new cover art for it. But I'm also going to share some new artwork in the Eric Schwabington chat over on Discord if you want to check that out. If you haven't checked out the Discord already, check out the link below. Discord's free. It's just, you can join, be a part of the community. We can continue these conversations over there. Otherwise, check out the Patreon, the Vimeo. There's a whole bunch of other links below me. You can listen to my music if you want to. That's a fun one. Otherwise, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will hopefully see you soon. I have to go around you because my mouse is broken, so enjoy.